Boom, we are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. So I want to give a shout out to the person who commented this. Sometimes it's just the way it goes. I recorded an entire video. This is the work I put in for you guys without any sound on. And the funny thing is, I knew it actually sounded kind of funny, but sometimes you think to yourself, well, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just not hearing things correctly. And in fairness to me, I had just woken up from a nap, and so I didn't have all my bearings, but I had all my bearings enough to talk about Iowa Hawkeye sports. So we're going to re-record. I already recorded this, but I'm going to re-record. But this time, instead of having the Iowa football recruiting update and my reaction to Tony Perkins / PMAC transferring, I'm going to have them separate because of time constraints. So this video, I'm going to react to Tony Perkins and Patrick McCaffery leaving. By the way, I'm going to add a little bit in. The Iowa women's basketball team did defeat Colorado in the Sweet 16, and they are moving on to the Elite Eight. I believe that this was intentional from the selection committee to place LSU and Iowa in the same bracket due to the eyeballs that it attracted last year. And in sports, you really do, and I'm not going to stay on this for too long, but in sports, because ultimately, if I do, I may as well just create a separate video. But congratulations to the women for they have been dominant the last couple of years. Lisa Bluter has created one of the best programs in the country. Iowa women's basketball is definitely becoming a blue blood in the sport of women's basketball. But you definitely do see kind of the different styles, and I've seen this with officiating, that their culture does affect kind of how the things that players do, the kind of mentality, the attitude, and things like that they do have. And you look at LSU, and you see kind of this abrasive, in your face, flipping off the crowd or doing this or doing this. And the people that like Caitlin Clark tend to not like Angel Reese. And I think that's it's really not that surprising, because again, the background that people tend to have that support a Caitlin Clark, a more gracious, a more humble approach to the game. And don't get me wrong, Caitlin Clark definitely does do some of this sometimes, and she definitely can be a talker, but it's not as much as Angel Reese. Whereas Angel Reese, you see she will definitely haunt players when their team is up by 20, so on and so on. And so it's very interesting to see. I promise you there's going to be tons and tons of articles on this game, and there will be some people, some outlets who turn this into a racial thing. And it's just the world that we live in today. It's unfortunate, but it is the truth. And as Iowa fans, you should absolutely be expecting that. That is 100,000% what is going to happen. Is there will be articles on black versus white culture. This will 100% be turned into a racial thing rather than just the outcome of the game and enjoying the actual performance of the game on the court. So it is what it is, but this is currently the world we live in. I do think it was intentional that they placed them in the same bracket. And so we'll see how that game goes. All right. So Tony Perkins, and we'll see. I may have a reaction to that game in the future. So Tony Perkins and Patrick McCaffery deciding to leave. So let me start with each one individually. Let's start with Tony Perkins. I've seen some comments from Iowa fans, and this is complete cope, in my opinion. It's complete cope that Tony Perkins, good riddance. He wasn't that good of a player, or he wasn't as good as he should have been. And that's just complete hogwash. I would say that Tony Perkins met and at times exceeded at least what I had as expectations for him during the preseason. I expected him to be a 13 to 16 point a night scorer, more towards the 14 to 15 range, which he was. That's exactly what he was. At times, he was more towards the top end. At times, he was closer to the bottom end. And it makes sense because Tony Perkins still has not developed a consistent enough jumper to where he can be a consistent 15 plus point a night scorer. To be that type of scorer, you have to have multiple tools in your tool bag, because once you get to that level, the game planning, the film that is used to watch players and watch their habits, their go-tos is extraordinarily high. I remember when I was playing at UOP, the amount of film that we would watch on players and watching those aspects of their game. There's another word for it. I'm blanking on it. Forgive me. It's the morning where I'm at. But you try and take that away. And when it's at the Big Ten level and at the highest of levels, it does tend to get taken away. If they want to take it away, they will take it away. So the onus becomes on the offensive player to go to other tools in their tool bag to counteract whatever they are trying to take away. I'm blanking on the word, but essentially it's habits. It's the habits of the players. But regardless, I really, during the season, and you guys know this, I said multiple times that if Tony Perkins decided to use the extra year of eligibility, that he would likely return to Iowa. Why? Because he's in a starting role. Fran McCaffery has a great offensive system, and Tony Perkins and also Iowa tends to compete for the NCAA tournament. Obviously, guys who have played at Iowa can go to the NBA, as we've seen with Joe Wieskamp, Luka Garza, Tyler Cook, and the Murray twins. So I thought for sure if Tony Perkins decided to return, that he would absolutely return to Iowa. But I should have known better. In this day and age, nothing is off the table. Now, overall, I thank Tony Perkins for his 4 years of eligibility. It's better than nothing. Unlike other players who decide to leave 1 year into their career or 2 years into their career, at least Tony Perkins gave Iowa 4 strong years. But the sucky thing about it is, with regards to Tony Perkins specifically, is, you look at Tony took minutes away, especially towards the end of the season. Him, Josh, the primary rotation that we saw that was the go-to for Fran McCaffery late in the season, the latter half of the season, was Tony Perkins, Josh Dix, and Brock Harding, specifically Tony Perkins and Josh Dix. By the way, I am very, very optimistic about Josh Dix next year. If Josh Dix were to hit the transfer portal this year, he would have programs like Duke and North Carolina after him, because he is such an up-and-coming player with a huge offensive skill set. Hopefully, Iowa is able to retain him. I expect him next year to be a minimum 13-point scorer a game for the Iowa Hawkeyes. His game is so smooth. I love watching him play. But that is what it was, okay? So Tony Perkins, the sucky thing about it is Tony Perkins, the veteran, especially towards the end of the season, ended up taking minutes away from the developing younger Desante Bowen. Now, ultimately, Fran McCaffery may have said to Desante Bowen, "It's not working out here. Even if you decide to come back, we'll likely go to the transfer portal to get another guard. Who knows?" Okay. I ultimately none of us know the conversations that happen behind closed doors within a program. But it just sucks. Like, I wish Desante Bowen had waited to see what Tony Perkins decided to do and then made his decision. But a lot of times with these athletes, they have other people in their lives that are in their ear who purport to be for the athlete when in reality they're for themselves, and they give bad information. The smart thing for Desante Bowen would have been to wait to see what Tony Perkins and the rest of the roster decided to do, and then put his name in the transfer portal. Now, the risk that you run if you do that is, of course, roster spots are filled. And, if the later you wait, the less options that you have. But ultimately, in my opinion, and this is coming from a former Division I player, and now the transfer portal was not what it was and when I played. And also, I played water polo, not basketball, in college. But if it were me, I would think that your chances would be better at Iowa, a program that you're already familiar with, that offered you a scholarship straight out of high school, that has an invested interest in developing you, as opposed to taking a risk at another program when you haven't even put enough solid film on tape with regards to your time at Iowa. And I said this in my Facebook post. Tony Perkins will go high Power 5. He has his pick of the lot. In the previous video, let me see if I can get it pulled up here. I showed you guys an on three. I showed you guys an on three article that shows how many offers Tony Perkins has, and according to On Three, he is a top 10 transfer portal target. Okay. So, whereas you look at Desante Bowens, and that's not the case. Desante Bowens has not put the type of film that we have seen from Tony Perkins out there. Okay. So, I don't think it was smart, but as an Iowa fan, it sucks. So look at this. He's heard from the likes of Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Virginia, Virginia Tech, UCLA, and many others. Here is the other list. Now, a lot of Iowa insiders have said that the Indiana schools are the most likely schools that he will go to, Indiana or Purdue. I don't think Purdue is likely because their roster is pretty solidified, but I do think Indiana is a possibility for Tony Perkins. But I think now currently he is crystal balled to Missouri. I think he's going to get out of the Big Ten. So it just sucks that Iowa lost both of their scholarship point guards. And they are kind of thin at the point guard position going into next year. Now, Josh Dix absolutely is capable of playing that combo guard, point/shooting guard position. And he is really nice. And I'm very, very confident in Brock Harding. But, I in a perfect world, Desante Bowen would have waited, and then Tony Perkins decides to transfer, and then Desante Bowen decides to stay at Iowa. Now, keeping this on Tony Perkins, it is a loss, guys. Okay, he is. This is his grade by 247 Sports. He's considered a 4-star, 93, and the 33rd overall best prospect in the transfer portal as of right now. That is excellent. It's a big loss. It would have been hugely beneficial for Iowa to have Tony Perkins next year. Now, would it have interrupted the development of Brock Harding? Sure. And as I always say, guys, in basketball, there is only so many minutes that can go around. Okay. And there's only so many statistical numbers that can be had for every single player on the team. But this is definitely a loss, guys. I mean, there is no doubt about it. Tony Perkins leaving is a loss. But I also think at least he gave 4 strong years to Iowa, and I wish him the best. Uh, and I am simultaneously excited about what Iowa has coming in the future. Now, some of the names that Iowa has on the radar is this kid that played at Hofstra. Let me see if I can find his name here. Um, Let me see if I can get that pulled up. So that's my thoughts um, on Tony Perkins. It's a loss, but it's there's some other positive elements that I can think of with regards to this. I believe that this will give ample opportunity for Josh Dix and Brock Harding to grow, and I'm very excited about the development of those two players, and I think that they will work very well together in the backcourt. So this is Iowa or Hofstra basketball, and the guy that I have seen that Iowa is in on is this guy, Waquan Carlos, and he had a nice statistical season. He seems like a more of a pure point guard to me. Um, but he definitely did have a nice statistic. He's out of Brooklyn, and this year he averaged 10.4 points per game, 6.3 assists, and 4.4 rebounds and 1.6 steals. I mean, he's a pretty strong all-around guard, honestly. I mean, that those are really, really nice all-around numbers for a guard. And to tell you the truth, it kind of reminds me of Tony Perkins a lot. Not a super high scorer, but scores enough. Averages 4 to 7 assists a game. Can get rebounds. At 6 foot, the fact that this guy averages 4 rebounds a game is actually pretty darn good. And that means that he plays hard. That's what that tells me. So we'll see if Iowa is able to land this guy. I think he would have 1 or 2 years of eligibility left. If he may have the COVID year left, but I'm not sure. All right, guys, to wrap this up, the last person to talk about is Patrick McCaffery. So I have had disagreements with people online about Patrick McCaffery, and I want to make it clear, okay? I do not say that Patrick McCaffery has been an elite player at Iowa. In fact, I have said the opposite for a long, long time. Now, with that said, is he somebody that can provide strong or contribute to Power Five teams? Of course. It is not as easy as some of you guys think to find a 6'8", long, athletic forward that can occasionally knock down three-point shots. It's not as easy as you think to find that. My contention with Patrick McCaffery has always been that his career has been like this. It's always been quite stagnant. And the moment he stepped onto Iowa's campus versus his final game has been virtually the same, if not slightly lower, which tells me that Patrick McCaffery does not spend a ton of time in the lab. He doesn't work on his game, which also tells me that he really is not as in love with basketball as one might think. Believe me, guys, there are tons of athletes that like the sport but are not in love with it. And to become the type of player that is super, super, super elite at that level, you have to have an obsession with the sport. Okay. I mean, an obsession. I remember the first day or the first week that I stepped on to UOP's campus, and I saw some of these European guys and some of the main contributors for our team. The obsession that they had, immediately I knew that I did not have. And that ultimately at those levels is what separates the people who are strong contributors at that level and who are not. So, Patrick McCaffery has been the same player throughout. He has been inconsistent with shooting the basketball. He's been able to score points against smaller teams when he's able to utilize his size and athleticism. But when it comes to playing against actual Power Five competition with teams that are the same size as him, he if he's not knocking down jumpers, he's not scoring. Was he a decent defender? Perhaps. Was he a decent rebounder? Perhaps. But that's pretty much what Patrick was across the board. Just kind of decent, but not amazing at anything. And so I think Patrick, at the end of the day, is potential untapped. He never reached his potential, and it was never realized, and we never saw it. And ultimately, I'm okay with him leaving Iowa. Iowa, the one position that Iowa is really strong at is the forward position. They have Lajai Dembele. They have who I think is already better than Patrick McCaffery as a freshman last year. They have Price Sanford, who I think is already better than Patrick McCaffery as a freshman last year. They are going to have Chris Taggio and Cooper Coach. So there is a ton of talent at the forward position for Iowa, that 6'6" to 6'9" range. And you can even throw Owen Freeman in the forward position role a little bit. And also, people have maybe forgotten this, but Riley Mulvey, who is a scholarship player for Iowa, who skipped a year of high school and basically reclassified a year above his actual age, decided to redshirt this year, and I'm very interested to see. And I had been advocating that for the longest time for him to redshirt and develop and work on his game. He's 6'11", very, very tall. I'm very interested to see what he turns into with a full year of development. So I wish Patrick McCaffery the best. He'll probably land at a mid-major or a up and coming Power 5 program. Somebody asked me in the comments, would Patrick McCaffery receive minutes from Iowa State? Yes, he would. Every single team in the country can use a 6'8" guy that can get up and down the court. Okay. And at the very least, defend and give you minutes defensively and stuff like that. Would he be more than what he is at Iowa State? Of course not. Would he? I think he would probably play slightly less at Iowa State than he would at Iowa, but he would still give them solid minutes. It is not, or some minutes. It's not as easy as you guys think to find somebody who has been through the rigmarole of college basketball life, who has played at a high level as often as Patrick McCaffery has, who knows how to be a leader on some level. He's probably not as good of a leader as Connor McCaffery is, but he's been in locker rooms before. He's played at the NCAA tournament level. He's won a Big Ten champion. It is not as easy to find those guys as one might think. Okay. So, that's just my take there. But ultimately, I really don't care. The thing that I care the most about is, and I truly believe this, he is untapped potential. And we never saw the height of what Patrick McCaffery could be from day one to his last day. He was the exact same player throughout his career. So I don't think Iowa will go get anybody in the transfer portal. I think they're really only going to be looking for a point guard or a combo guard to bolster up their guard position. In the previous video, I showed a clip from I think it's Chris Hassel's podcast. They were talking about Fran McCaffery. Maybe I might in the future do a reaction to that, but due to time constraints, I don't have time to do it now. But anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, whether you agree, disagree. It doesn't matter. It really helps the engagement of the video. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy will on facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.